Thank you, our great friend Dave Petzo. Good morning. Welcome to Monday on a hot week here in the Treasure Valley. Kevin Miller in the morning. Blessed to be a part of your day. Thank you all for waking up with us, choosing us. We so appreciate it. And, of course, you can always get the latest KIDO Talk Radio information on our app. You can download that at Google Plus in the App Store, also on KIDOTalkRadio.com. Let's get to the phones. Daniel Joseph joining us, the China Learning Curve, to talk about all things China and Chinese. Mr. Joseph, thank you for appearing with us once again.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
So the president is almost 2 years into his term. Has he significantly altered our relationship with China, and what does that really mean for our economy, sir?
Well, I think the answer is yes, but we don't know the impact yet. He's altered it in the sense that he has started us down a path of trade and economic negotiations with China that were, frankly, inconceivable prior to the Trump administration. So we wouldn't be here without Mr. Trump. It's still too early to see where this is going to go. This is the most important part of the kind of restructuring of the relationship. I still think there's a good chance we end up with China making a good deal of the changes that we'd like to see them make. I don't think it plays out exactly as Donald Trump has laid out. I don't think there's other reasons why we have a trade deficit with China. It's a low-cost country. That's not going to be erased immediately. But Donald Trump is correct when he says we need to push them further to open their markets. And it's still early. I think this is going to play out over at least the next 6 months, probably 12 or beyond, to see what kind of agreement we get. But, hey, the fireworks have started. We'll see where it goes.
Well, has China continued to grow and to continue to flex its economic influence? Mr. Joseph, obviously, militarily, we hear about the South China Seas. We hear about their influence with North Korea. What's the state of China today?
Well, the good news for us is China's influence is dependent upon its economic growth. And its economic growth is dependent upon its integration with the global economy. No economy grows into a major advanced economy in isolation, and China certainly hasn't done that. That's why we're having these trade talks. It needs foreign markets. It needs to, learn technology and new management from competing in foreign markets. So the good news, I always like to say, that old adage really rings true. You don't declare war or go to war with your customer. So China is actually becoming more like us and easier to deal with. Now, we're kind of in that middle territory where they're not completely like us right now. So there are challenges. But I think overall, because they're so reliant upon economic growth, the government, for its own legitimacy, they have an interest in global stability. They're not going to see everything eye to eye with us, but they are interested in global stability. We're going to have disagreements on things like the South China Sea, but I think we can work together on issues like Korea.
Well, obviously, the thought of uniting Korea like Germany, some people would say that would be the dream. But on one hand, you have South Korea in the space age and North Korea in the Stone Age. Never mind the brutal, reprehensive, horrific human rights violations that continue to occur in North Korea. Let's say that did happen. Let's say the Koreans, like the Germans, revved up and had that unified Korea. That would eventually would be perhaps a competitor to the Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, it's best right now. No one is really talking about reunification, and that's a good thing. That's one thing China doesn't want to see in the short term. China likes that buffer of North Korea between itself and South Korea, which is not only an ally of the U.S., but where the U.S. has troops. And I think right now, reunification is not on the table and shouldn't be. As you said, for that reason, the countries are too far apart. However, China was North Korea 40 years ago and did a great job. I mean, it was poor, it was backward, it had a personality cult type of leader, and has made great strides since then. China's in a great position to help North Korea do the same thing if we can get them to an agreement on the nuclear side of the equation, and if the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, really is interested in turning a page that his predecessors did not and pursuing some sort of economic reform. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not free market in a week. But you move in that direction. And a big part of that would be, for example, exporting to China, which they could do. So China could play a huge role there. And China really doesn't have a soft spot in its heart for North Korea. It wants North Korea to not be a problem. So if we pursue a solution that does not involve, reunification in the next couple of decades, I think that there's a good chance the Chinese will support it, and we certainly need their support.
When we take a look at the world stage today, obviously China and America are engaged in this trade war. By the way, Daniel Joseph joining us, the China Learning Curve, ChinaLearningCurve.com on KIDO Talk Radio. So where are we going with this? I'll tariff you. Well, I'll top your tariff with a tariff. Is there a short game and a long game here economically?
You know, I'm not sure any of us really knows, to be honest with you. Donald Trump, like him or not, I think we can agree he's unconventional. And one of the things, you know, leaders in general don't like a lack of certainty. Donald Trump really is more of the negotiator that he posits himself to be. So lack of certainty, he thinks, I think Mr. Trump thinks plays in his advantage. So right now, I'm not sure what he considers to be an acceptable deal. And until I know that, I can't tell you whether this is going to work or not. What the Trump side would say right now is, listen, we're softening up the other side. We're conveying to the Europeans, to the Chinese, to everybody, we mean business and we will follow through on this, so you better come to the table. And you know what? If that's what happens and we end up with more open markets and not walls built around our economy, they're going to hail Donald Trump as one of the great free traders of all time. On the other hand, if Trump drives too hard of a bargain and, you know, in going for perfection in China, passes on better, then we might find that we are in a protracted trade war that hurts both sides and hurts us more than we'd like. So it's still early, and Trump holds his cards close to his vest, and he's a negotiator. And I don't completely understand his, or maybe I don't agree entirely with every move they make, but I certainly hold out hope that this is going to continue to go in the right direction.
What about Russia? Where do they loom on the world stage?
Well, the problem with Russia is, you know, again, all less developed countries that are not really democratic, weak rule of law, they don't see the world the way we do. It's hard to lock arm in arm with them. The good thing about China is, while it's not democratic yet, it's integrated with the global economy, has an interest in stability. They are building ties with not just major corporations around the world, but, you know, mid-sized, small companies do business in China, you know, consumers. So that gives us common interest. Russia's not doing that. When you take oil out of the picture, Russia's economy hasn't grown at all since it kind of tried to get past the communist experiment. I mean, it's got a growth rate of less than 1.5%. It's become basically an oil power with mischief on its mind, a leader who doesn't mind dabbling in Syria, the Ukraine, the Crimea. So I think they're very, very different, because although on the top we might think the governments politically are similar, economically the juxtaposition couldn't be more stark. And I think that makes Russia not a looming threat, but much more of a risk over time than China is. If Russia were to get on track, if you were to ever pick, I like to say, you never grab something in a store and it says made in Russia. They're just not integrated in the global economy that way. And that very much changes their incentives on the world stage in a way that is not good for us or for stability.
Well, why aren't they? Why don't they manufacture? Is it because everything's corrupt over there and they've got the mob running everything, or what?
That's a great question. It's, you know, only 15% of the world's population lives in an advanced democratic country like ours. So clearly getting on the road to development is not easy. China, Russia, 30 years ago, tried a quick transition to the market economy. It was called the economic shock therapy. It failed miserably, financial collapse. They never put in place what is necessary to engage the global economy, to encourage foreign investment, to protect foreign investors, to protect entrepreneurs. Instead, kind of this relatively lawless economy with a strong criminal element, frankly, and these oligarchs with ties to organized crime kind of dominate the economy, and foreigners aren't very involved. China took a kind of a gradual step-by-step approach and was able to convince, Nike and Puma and others to make tennis shoes and other people to make computers, and gradually, step-by-step, moving up the value chain, a very different approach, and it's really worked in China. And now Russia has a leader that just seems to want to ignore that side of the equation. He's happy collecting the oil money, putting what he can into the military, hosting various supporting events. That seems to be what he likes to do.
Finally, Mr. Joseph, what should we be looking out for with this looming government shutdown? And if that does get closer to happening, will that send a signal to our friends and foes economically?
Well, I actually think that most people looking at the world stage, the Chinese, Russians, others, they understand the long-term view and the short-term view. Having said that, the fact that we kind of have economic momentum on our side right now is good for us in terms of these trade negotiations, particularly because China, we built up our debt a lot earlier than China. China now has a debt problem it didn't have 10 years ago, and its economy is slowing. So our momentum, I do think, in the short term, from a perception point of view, helps us. And if we start to see that momentum wear away because of a government shutdown, because trade begins to wear on the economy, or because of some other external shock, I think it can change the negotiating dynamic. So a lot of people think that we can keep right now the dynamics in the economy are strong for another couple of quarters, and we could continue to be so if we address some other problems like deficits. Hopefully we'll continue in that direction, and that will give us more strength in these trade negotiations, definitely.
Mr. Joseph, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us here this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kevin. As always, it was great talking to you.
Oh, great talking to you, sir. TheChinaCurve.com. Check him out today. Always appreciate the insight there. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, a looming government shutdown, whether or not the wall is built, whether or not immigration will happen. Do we really want look, this is a question that I already know what you're going to say. Do we really want a solution to immigration here in America? Or should we just get it over with and let everybody in and go, well, it was great while it lasted? I suppose it depends if you have kids or grandkids, the answer to that question. Next, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Evacuations have been brisk and often over the last 24 hours, and they're still possible. We're not taking any chances moving forward, as we saw the fire behavior over the last several days.
Our community and the city of Reading has been significantly hit by the number of homes lost and people displaced. We're doing the best that we can to stay out in front of this with our evacuations. And so our officers are working tirelessly around the clock to make that happen.
It's burning in every direction all at the same time. And we've got, even though we have multiple resources, the way that it's burning, the intensity that it's burning, uphill, downhill, even if it doesn't have a strong wind on it, it's burning as if it's got a Santa Ana wind or a strong 60 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour wind.
I miss home. And I'm hoping nobody else loses their house or their life.
The quick actions of these men and women working with the fire officials for the evacuations and the evacuation notices led to lives being saved.
Keep those folks in Idaho and throughout the West in your thoughts and prayers. As unfortunately, dear true believer, it is fire season here, right? One of the biggest, scariest threats that can happen. Remember last year our state seemingly burned to the ground. And today it is the state of California. More on that in a minute. We go to Doug at Mountain Home on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, still got a relative down there in California, right there out of Reading. Been helping people evacuate. It's a freaking mess, a nightmare. Anyway, on the government shutdown, maybe the Republicans, which they don't seem to want to help our commander-in-chief, he's been doing it all on his own, but maybe they ought to shut up and help him with this getting appropriated money for the wall. And yeah, we need immigration reform. I squawked when Bush was in there at the lab to Craig and screamed and hollered at him about it. You know, this country's got boundaries, got freaking laws. They need to be, I got to abide by them. You got to abide by them, don't you, Kevin?
Right.
What's that?
Yep.
I think I lost you.
All right, Doug, thank you for the call. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And back to the president's point, and essentially fund the wall, fund the catch and catch program, get rid of catch and release, fund immigration reform, and let's get on with it. Because we're not playing games anymore. And you have the squishy Republicans, to Doug's point, saying, oh, no, Mr. President, don't do that. We don't want you to do that because if that happens, we might lose the midterms. Look, how did Donald Trump win? Whether we approve of how he gets things done or not, he went all in. Those of you that play the illegal poker and the illegal poker circles in and around the Treasure Valley, you know what I'm saying. That's what happens. He went all in. which is what he's going to do now. He's going to make it an issue. We're going to shut down the government unless you give me the wall. We're going to shut down the government unless you do your job. And the Republicans are saying, well, we don't want him to do that. We don't want the government to be shut down because it's good for the goose. It's embarrassing. Think about people that you know that run businesses, okay, that have to make a payroll, that have to balance their profits and losses, the P&Ls. And regardless of whether you're in a big business or a small business, that's the way it is. You ever watch Shark Tank? You ever watch CNBC's The Profit? What do those guys do? What's your P&L? What's your profit and loss? The government, it's all losses, right? So the president says, since you guys have pedal-pulled it around enough, we're going to hold you accountable. And essentially, no ticky, no punchy. And then you have Mitch McConnell and others saying this isn't a good thing, right? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Your thoughts on that, plus the wildfires. You would think, with all due respect to whatever government agency runs California or runs Idaho or runs Oregon or Washington, that we would find an answer to the fires, the threats of the massive fires that continue to happen. Remember how close they were last year? And you think of Redding, California. Many people are from Redding, have been to Redding, understand Redding. It's a hard-nosed town. All of a sudden, how does that happen in America today, where fire that we can put out cannot be controlled? No disrespect to the Forest Service, no disrespect to everybody else, but to hear those people say, I lost my home. Think about how comforting your home is, or your place of business, or the street you live on, or the streets that you use, and you can't use it. Look, the road to and from McCall. What happened there? It's shut down. Why? Because of the fires. Do we not live in the year 2018? And whether you believe in the supertanker, Phil Hardy, Lars Larson, or you believe in something else, there should be something done about this. Well, what can we do? Fire just happens. Well, we used to have polio, right? We used to have all these diseases, and now they're eliminated. Can't we do something about these fires? Or if you just live in the West, you're blank out of luck. You're blah, blah, blah. Traffic and weather together. Our time is 8:26.
Oregon, in fact. I'm News Channel 7's Eric Gabbard.
And it's been a while since we've heard from our friend Arvell in Fruitland. Good morning, Arvell. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Make some comments concerning about the fires. In July of 2012, a man by the name of William Scott, he was an ex-NSA official, he presented a talk to the Economic Warfare Panel, and his title was Fire Wars. And what he brought out was that many of these fires are started by jihadists who are waging war on our country, and they're very, well, you can see what's happening in Israel with Gaza and how they send their kites over to destroy the people's groves of olives and wheat fields and whatnot. But if you would Google that information, you will come up with his talk, and you can hear him speak about what they learned about these fires. And it's a real serious issue, obviously.
So what you're thinking the jihads are doing this, the terrorists?
A lot of the fires are started by them, at least back starting 10 years ago.
You know, and we haven't heard any of that except from you.
That's right. But no, I didn't originate it. It came from William Scott, who presented that to this economic warfare super panel. And go to
well,
July.
You know, nobody wants to hear that because that's
right.
too terrifying.
It terrifies the dickens out of people. But listen to what he has to say. Just a short talk that he gives. And I think we'll get some insight into these fires.
Arvell, thank you for the call.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. No more coming up next. A live report from the White House, from your house to the White House with Kevin Miller every morning. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Rolling right along. Don't forget, KIDO Talk Radio is your home for Glenn Beck, followed by Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, and Lars Larson this evening. Going to be some of the hottest days in the next 3 or 4 days, so please keep yourself hydrated and take care of yourself. Joining us now, live from the White House, Fox News Radio's John Decker on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning to you, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Not bad. Very anxious to get your take on Donald Trump, President Trump, and a possible shutdown over an oldie but a goodie, the wall.
Yeah, the president wants funding for a border wall with Mexico, as you know, as your listeners know, and the president's saying he is willing to shut down the federal government if he doesn't get funding for that wall with Mexico. Also, as part of any legislation, he wants to end the catch and release policy and also the visa lottery program. Unfortunately for the president, Kevin, Republican leaders in Congress say that a government shutdown will not happen and that plans to vote on that border wall funding will not happen until after the midterm elections. So I don't think the president's going to get his way on this one.
What's fascinating, though, it seems like the president is a consummate poker player, John, where the conventional wisdom would be just ride this out, go with a continuing resolution, don't make any waves, buffered by the good economy, the GDP. You've got the Supreme Court, a lot of good things going his way to hopefully, historically, in his opinion, stop the usual ruling party loses a lot of seats in the House. But it appears the president wants to gamble a little on this one.
Well, that's right. At the same time, he could be just sort of huffing and puffing here, but not intending to shut down the government. But, Friday's GDP number, 4.1%, really good news for the president, for our country, for the Republican Party as they go into the midterm elections. That's a pretty impressive growth rate. I don't see how, if you're a Democrat, you can criticize that. And that's for the second quarter of the year. If the third quarter is along the same lines, I think that the president and Republicans will have a very good argument to make for keeping Republicans in control of the House and the Senate during the midterm elections. So certainly the president's feeling good about that. And you also mentioned what is likely to happen before the midterms, which is a vote ultimately for the president's choice to fill that seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. The president's choice, Brett Kavanaugh, likely going to be supported by every Republican member of the Senate, which would assure Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation.
That would be big at KIDO Talk Radio and across the world. What about the Michael Cohen tapes? They appear to be, once again, getting the president's interest. You have reporters being critical that the president's not responding to the questions that are being shouted out at him.
Well, look, the president may be asked some of those questions this afternoon. The president's going to have a joint press conference here at the White House. It's going to be with his Italian counterpart, Giuseppe Conte, who's the prime minister of Italy, who's going to be visiting the White House this afternoon. And some of those same questions that the president has been ignoring over the course of the past week, he may be asked during the course of that press conference, which will likely, because of the weather, take place in the East Room of the White House as opposed to the White House Rose Garden.
John, anything else we should be having our antenna up for this week?
Well, the president's going to be hitting the road once again this week. He's going to be traveling to Tampa, Florida tomorrow for a campaign-style rally, and he'll also be traveling on Thursday to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, two spots that were Trump country in 2016. The president's hoping to keep them in the Republican column in the midterm elections, and I think he'll get a good reception in both places.
John, we appreciate it, and thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great day. Talk to you real soon.
You too. Our friend John Decker joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here. KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Tom in Nampa with Kevin Miller. Thanks for your patience. Good morning, Tom.
Oh, hi, Kevin. Yeah, this is Fire and Reading. That's where I moved from, and I'm quite familiar with the area. And what started it, at least it's believed to have started it, was took a flat tire that a guy had on a trailer, and he didn't realize, I guess, that it was flat until it started smoking, and it was a travel trailer, and he pulled over the side of the road and caught some grass on fire. And it was 113 that day, and it's now spread to 90,000 acres.
Sounds about right.
Just get an idea how much land that is. That's 140 square miles.
Wow.
That's almost a square. Fires don't burn in squares, but I mean, that's like 12 by 12 miles. It's wiped out the the town of Old Shasta, which is just to the west of Reading. It's wiped out Keswick. It's destroyed 3 subdivisions. And fortunately, the river runs through the city, so everything on the north and east side of the river kind of snakes through town there is probably pretty safe. But it's now headed in another direction out close to where my place was, and or still is. I still have a property down there, and it was evacuated, but it seems to have moved out more into the less populated areas now. But I don't know how big that's going to get, but it seems like it creates its own wind, like a tornado. Can you imagine trying to fight fire in 113-degree heat?
No.
I just can't imagine it. It seemed like, I hate to say it, but it looks like this is the new normal. The same thing happened in Santa Rosa last year, which is, quite a ways to the south and west. I'm familiar with Santa Rosa, too. I went to college there. And a fire started over in Calistoga and come over a hill and burned, thousands of acres just overnight. It just goes through that grass. And, you can have all the fire breaks in the world. My doctor lost his place there at Whiskey Town, and he had a 100-foot fire break all the way around his property. And it still got it. It just wipes out everything in its path. So I hope they get it under control. And I don't know, California's sure been getting the brunt of it, hasn't it?
It has. It has indeed. Tom, thank you for the report and the call.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio. We go back to Doug in Mountain Home. Doug, we lost you there. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Just what he was just saying there about the fire. It's true. Fire is fire, and it all adds differently. I lived right up on Prairie, went right through the Foothills fire, burnt right around it. And I'm going to say one thing. One of my ranch and neighbor friends had so many cows down below our place where I lived that they had grazed it down grubbed it down to almost the dirt. And when that fire come roaring across and hit that field below our house, it had nothing to burn, Kevin. So what's that tell you? Go out here. It literally went around our 40-acre home where I used to live at because there was nothing to burn. I've been out. I hunt a lot. I've been out and I live just out in Mountain Home here up in the foothills, Danskin foothills. And you can blame a lot of this on Forest Service, BLM, mismanagement of our range, because they will not let cows graze this stuff. It's just a tinderbox waiting to happen, Kevin, with cheatgrass. All they got to do is put cows on it and graze it off. Log the timber. I used to cut logs for 26 years. We never had this kind of fire activity when I was a kid back in the 60s and the 70s. You didn't have this stuff because they grazed it, they logged it, they utilized our country. And what do you got going here lately in the last 30 years? You've been spelling it out. I've been listening to you. You hit everything the nail right on the head, Kevin, every time. You can blame this. And right now, in the firefighting part of it, that Reading fire, I'm not going to say no names, but I've seen it done before. It was out by Whiskey Town Lake where it started. They would not, from what I was told by reliable people that was there, they would not let them dip water out of Whiskey Town Lake with the helicopter buckets, Kevin, right there. Right on 299, they would not let them do it. They had to fly over the mountain and get water out of Lake Shasta. And then I was also told that super tanker was somewhere just down south, and he was coming that way, was going to fight the fire, and they said, no, it's too smoky, go away. They don't want to put this stuff out. They don't care. It's jobs. They look at it as jobs. So there you go. That's what I wanted to say earlier, Kevin. And the same thing about the government shutdown. I hope he gets him. If they don't help him out, which they haven't helped our president out in both sides of the alley. I don't care. Let them shut him down. Piss on them. So if you want to do anything like go cut firewood, Forest Service, and the BLM, all of them, they're not to work. They ain't out there. You can go do what the hell you want, like we should be able to anyway. So I'll go. Just bye.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate your thoughts. Scott in Caldwell with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Scott.
Hello. Good morning. Say, years ago when I was in school, I was working part-time at a Mexican restaurant. One of the guys that I worked with was a chef who had a brother that was a cop in Michoacan. And we were talking about the then Vicente Fox. And he said that basically the government was the mafia was the government, which makes me want to ask you, because you've got your ear to the sounds of a lot more information than people like I will have. And that is, I wonder why there isn't more of a dialogue about the seizure of cash and assets from the drug runners, people like Shorty Gutzman. And if that won't pay for the wall, at least it would make a heck of a down payment.
Well, and here's the other one with that. Most of the money that Mexico gets, it's not from oil, but it's from the people living here, sending it back home to their relatives. And what the president did think about doing is threatening them to build the wall. He taxed the heck out of that money that is wired back. I don't know if that's still on the table, but whether it's El Chapo or the narco-terrorists or whatever else, everything that should be seized should go into building that wall, along with, look, if you're here legally, illegally, and you're wiring money back to another country, well, then we should tax it.
Have you heard anything from the people that you talk with about ever using any of that seized money or assets?
No, I thought that they had. But that's a great idea.
Oh.
Maybe someone else will answer that.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Scott, for listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Pro-Life joins us now on 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, you were, let's see.
Gosh, I had my phone on there. Well, anyway, you were talking about Russ Moonves and the Me Too movement. Well, I've got a big opinion about the Me Too movement. A lot of that movement was where women wanting to move up in, say, media corporations, they would willingly, maybe even initiate sexual relationships with the boss, with the bigwigs that were making the appointment decisions. And then they kept quiet about it until now, when the Me Too movement says you were raped, you were sexually harassed. And so now they're saying, yeah, that's right, I was sexually harassed. I didn't willingly participate. And it's really prostitution. I don't know to what percent, but it's a big percent. I'd say it's over 50%, probably up to 80 or 90. And it's the same analogy. A woman has consensual relationships sexually with somebody, their boyfriend, some one-night stand kind of a thing, and then they get pregnant. Then they get where our society is allowing them to say, I was raped, it was not consensual, so I get to murder my baby. It's the same kind of crime, and women get away with it, and I'm tired of it. And
well, what are you saying? You're blaming women for everything?
No, I'm not. I'm blaming both sides. I mean, if some woman came on to me,
it takes two to tangle. So let's go through the scenario here. I'll be the HR administrator here, since I just went through sensitivity and harassment training. Right. So you're saying, what happens if a woman comes up to you and says, "Hey, baby, how's about a kiss?"
Yeah, say if I'm the boss.
How would you handle that?
I'd say you're fired. If I was the boss and some girl say, how would you like, can I give you a kiss?
Let's
I'd
say
you're fired.
some girl grabbed your derriere. What would you do?
I'd fire her.
Do you think most men would do that?
No. That's the problem.
Yep.
That's the big problem.
They call
right
that
there.
collusion.
Yeah, you would be a good HR guy.
Thank you. Zero tolerance here.
Right. Well, Kevin, we love your show.
We love you, Pro-Life. By the way,
Yeah?
what station are you listening to right now?
I'm listening to 580 KIDO on the AM. I never listen to the FM because it doesn't come in good out here. But well, I'll tell you, it's available in downtown, in the populated areas. I'm sure you can get it really well.
God bless, Pro-Life. Have a great day.
All right, we'll see you.
More of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And if you're working today in the heat, driving, fighting fires, building, God bless you. Tough one this week. Triple digits all around, high triple digits. Speaking of the triple-digit conservative, Tea Party Bob joins us now from, I don't know, somewhere where he's doing something. I don't know if he's fooling with his microphone or what, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you?
I am trying to figure out what that sound was.
I'm not sure what that sound was. Maybe it was an echo.
Maybe it was the NSA tapping in.
That's very possible. For those that want to know where the drug money goes, if a government agency like the FBI, DEA, or ATF make a bust, the money is seized by them. The money is going to be put in evidence for a time and then divvied up between the local district and the agency responsible for effecting the arrest or seizure. As far as the president goes and the shutdown of the government, I hope he does it. He's on the right track. We need to get something done here. And while he's in the driver's seat with a booming economy and more jobs than we have people to fill them, I think he's got the perfect opportunity to do this. The problem is I don't think the Republicans are going to allow him to do it. We have a bunch of crony Republicans. We're going to get rid of 40 of them this year. They cater to K Street and the global industrialists who want to see immigration continue unabated. And if you don't get these guys out and get more of them out over the next election period, we're going to go back to the same thing we had as the borders become as porous as they are now and even more porous if we don't get a wall up. We're going to wind up with more of these urban areas becoming the solid Dem voting blocks that they have been. And I find Chris Wallace looks and sounds more like a liberal every time he's on Fox. On the fires burning in the West, we've been talking about getting our land back for years. Nobody seems to want to do anything about it. The Forest Service and the BLM are the worst stewards of our land, and we need to get control back to the states. But if we have officials like Otter and Little and Risch, it's never going to happen. Otter and Little don't want to do anything because 35% of our state budget comes from Washington, and they don't want to upset the apple cart. And Rich is so busy trying to collect conservationist votes, he's going to keep the status quo. So it's not a good situation for anyone who lives in the heavily forested areas. It's only a matter of time before we get another monster, uncontrollable fire here in our state.
Well, you're just full of good news today.
Well, no, I think that, people need to know what's going on, but a lot of them don't seem to care. Certainly the libs don't really care.
Oh, the libs care because they're running things right now.
Well,
Libby.
Not here yet. They're trying very hard, though, I have to admit.
So you're saying our Republican form of government is a good thing. You agree with all the Republican leadership? I
think the leader... No, I agree with the conservative leadership. We have a lot of leaders in Washington that I wouldn't even want to be caught dead with. And if we could get rid of them, I'd be very happy. They've been in way too long. They continue to screw our government up, and I'm just tired of them.
Good call, Tea Party Bob. And I'm Kevin Miller. Apologies to Tess. Sorry we didn't get to you today. We ran out of time. Please call back tomorrow. Glenn Beck is next. Thank you, Ray Amaya, for running the show, rolling on a hot Monday morning. May God bless everyone, and we thank you for listening. Keep the faith, y'all.